All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Em. I'm one of the librarians here at Rockland Public Library. We are so thrilled to be hosting tonight's Maine author talk. I'm happy to turn it over to tonight's speaker. Jefferson Navicky is the author of the story collection, The Paper Coast, and the poetic novel, The Book of Transparencies. His writing has appeared in Smoke Long Quarterly, Electric Literature, Fairy Tale Review, and his short plays have been produced across New England. He has been awarded a Maine Arts Commission grant, 2 Maine Literary Awards, and was the 2019 winner of the Maine Postmark Poetry Contest. He is the archivist for the Maine Women's Writers Collection. Find him online at jeffersonnavicky.com, and I'll turn it right over to him. Go right ahead.
Great, thank you, Em. Thanks so much for such a nice introduction. Thanks to the Rockland Public Library for hosting, and to everybody for coming out to watch tonight. So the full title of my book is Antique Densities, Modern Parables and Other Experiments in Short Prose. So I'm going to say a little bit about the book. I'll read a few pieces, and then we'll see if we have a little discussion, question and answer if we want to talk about the book, or talk about whatever we might want to talk about. So the first part of the title, Antique Densities, is a reference to Shirley Hazard's 1980 novel, Transit of Venus, which, if you haven't read, it's an amazing novel, kind of an epic love and travel story. The line that references the title is, "In the veiled light with an antique density of books behind him." And I love that phrase, the antique density of books behind him. And it's sort of, I was trying to write down kind of the mystical significance of books. You know, for people who love books, that phrase kind of gets towards that idea. And antique densities is a tribute to books and libraries, especially for the people who love them. And the other epigraph in the book is from George Christoph Lichtenberg, who's a German physicist of the 18th century, who I really know nothing about. But when I heard this quote from him, I thought it just was perfect for antique densities. And it's, "Imagination and fantasy must be used with caution, like any corrosive substance." And there are a few things that I love about that quote. First of all, imagination and fantasy must be used with caution. I love the kind of the power that is given to imagination in this sense, almost kind of a dangerous power. And you look to any authoritarian regime, and you can see the danger of creativity and imagination. And I also kind of, at least for my sense, I like to kind of use it with caution, and I take heed in that phrase in the book by keeping everything pretty short. Like, all of these pieces are a page or less, and I try to pack as much imagination as I can into a really small piece. And then the last part that I like is this, like any corrosive substance. Like, imagination is a corrosive substance, and it kind of gets to the part of the title that is experiments. I call it experiments in short prose, and I like the corrosiveness kind of speaks towards experiments, because sometimes with experiments you may get something right, but you might have an explosion, you might have corrosiveness everywhere, but you often get something new, and you kind of push things forward. And that's really important to me in these pieces. And there isn't really any kind of unifying voice or theme other than libraries, which is libraries and books is a theme here, but there are so many books. Books can be written about many, many, many different subjects. And it felt to me more important to do experiments, and rather than kind of push into the new realm of experiments, rather than to try to measure any success by uniformity and voice or style. And then the last thing, I call them modern parables, because it's a nod to a book that I found in 1998 in a used bookstore in New York City, Howard Schwartz is the editor, and it's called Tales of Wisdom, 100 Modern Parables. And they were fantastic fiction and prose, kind of, he called them parables, but they weren't kind of parables in a sense of like there was a easy explanation or moral to them. They were kind of these beautiful, amoral, weird creatures. So that's this, all the pieces in here are kind of an attempt to move into dialogue with that book that I so much love. So that's a little bit about the title, and then I'm just going to read some pieces. So the first one is going to be a book piece, and it's called A Book. It was originally published in an online literary magazine called Star 82, and they only took pieces of 50 words or less. And if you are so inclined, to someone who likes to do that, you can count the words in this piece, and there are exactly 50 words in it, which seemed like an interesting challenge to me. It's called A Book, and it's about the kind of the compulsion to create books. Oblivion recorded, she made her way back. The road pocked, her eyes vacant. En route, she bought from a boy in rags a box. In it, she put all she'd seen, her dust, her dreams, jealousy of all kinds, gone ambitions, and the small bits of hope she had left. The next piece, I just couldn't resist reading a piece about this kind of shoulder season, kind of what is that, yo-yoing between 60 degrees yesterday, snowstorm coming tonight, and the kind of craziness that comes out of that, like spring fever, compulsion to do things when you have the chance, and almost like your body is compelling you to do something, which is, this is a great part of that term, spring fever. So this is called The Indifference of Trees. And it's set in a city. The night concocted me, kept and slowed me. I proceeded into the inner organs of the vibrating city. A heart bounced. Even though it was the start of spring, the world once again wore the silence of snow and the indifference of trees. Her finger pointed to Toxum Square. I knew what I was doing was not sensible, but I still ran in that direction. The packed snow on sidewalks gave me traction beneath my boots. I soon grew hot, unbuttoning my green army issue as I ran. The sun melted snow. Crowds parted. I sidestepped old men, my ears ringing. I saw gentlemen lying in pools of blood with their trousers ripped. I saw the blue faces of poison victims and the peaceful faces of infants who died of whooping cough. I saw the police officer drop the match that started the fire that would burn us all. I saw the beach in early spring, too cold for swimming, and on the top floor of the beach house, the spirits of silent children learning in desks. In that quiet, I knew I had arrived and could finally stop. And then I'm going to continue with it's kind of a narrowing from cities to towns to villages. And I grew up in a small town in southeastern Ohio. And this piece is kind of an amalgam of this fictional amalgam of Cambridge, Ohio, where I grew up, and the town where I live now, which is in Freeport. And my most favorite thing about Freeport is the dump. So that kind of all makes its way into this feeling of small townness, and sort of the comfort of knowing a small town, or at least kind of feeling that you were known by it or contained by it. It's called Carsonville. The streets of Carsonville are filled with snow. The mayor wears snowshoes around the office. He was reelected on the weatherman's forecasts. The sidewalks of Carsonville do not have cracks, but I don't know how this happened. All the fathers in Carsonville are bald. The football field is well lit on Friday nights. Wing 13 sells hot dogs. Marty Gannison's mother has a hysterectomy. His father makes an announcement at a meeting. Walter Krauss dies of sadness. There's a three-legged dog that runs around the tennis courts named Leroy, and if he bites my sister, skies are gray most of the time. Two-story houses with siding, a fence. A dog barks. Is it Leroy? All roads in Carsonville, or at least the ones I walk, lead to the city dump. This is where I go on Saturday mornings. Last week, I found a hardcover of Swan's Way, a pair of hiking boots that almost fit, and a birthday cake with my name inexplicably written across it in light blue frosting that was stale as a rock. I have a bird feeder that I've carried with me to each house and apartment I've inhabited in Carsonville. I'm going to break that frosting into tiny bits, stick it into the bird feeder with the millet, and see what happens. So from the town to a village. This piece is called Village Life. It's my father-in-law lives on a beautiful reservoir in Rhode Island, and this piece was kind of based off of that. All of the I think the relevant information is in Village Life, but this also kind of, from the rest of the reading, we're kind of going to go drifting into a sort of dreams and dream worlds and kind of disorientation of dreaming. Village Life. Out on the lake that once was a village until the state flooded it 35 years ago, we ride in the boat with the electric motor. Skimming across the water without a wake, over the shallow spots, we look for a chimney like some lake monster's bricked antenna, or a roof's peak, the spine of some geometrically perfect fish. Then some real fish, bass with little blades of blue, pass an open window. They swim through doors, a fish down Main Street. Everything completely silent. Where sunlight once easily shone, hit a stoop, angled shadows beneath rocking chairs, rose along the clapboards, illuminated the white wooden church, split and dappled through the trees. Now sunlight does not even touch the topmost roofline, but instead hovers high above in reflection like glinty birds frozen in flight. It is an eerie green light that makes the color of skin underwater. We jump out of the boat in the middle of the lake to swim, the water surprisingly cold. Someone jokes about sharks and lakes. I wonder if I'm going to stub my toe against the chimney while swimming so high up in the air. And if I do, would it swim away? Okay, so moving further into dream world. So this is a piece of actually that as a dream that I had in the kind of crazy dream logic. I mean, I really love dreams, and it's a little tricky line for writers to try to turn dreams into pieces, but I love them so much that it seems worth trying. And especially I love the craziness of dreams. Like sometimes I'm thinking of my wife, who has some of the most funny, bizarre dreams that we never could make up in real life. And that kind of quality is what I try to shoot for in these pieces about dreams. So the only other things I think you have to know about this is Charles Manson, which probably most people know, is the California serial killer. And John Ashbery is a famously difficult poet, very good, but also famously difficult. This is called The Famous Poet. had a birthday party for his own imminent death, at which everyone was to honor his passing to the afterlife, and of course, also to honor what an amazing poet he was and how his work will last. Lots of people gathered, dressed elegantly. Everyone had to sit on a large scaffolding to wait for the appointed moment. But the famous poet had other plans. He wanted everyone to sacrifice themselves in his name. He was the Charles Manson of John Ashbery. But I didn't want to do it. I didn't buy into it. I wanted out, to float away on my own power. The poet didn't like this one bit. He decided to go after me, rub me out with his flunkies at the beck and call of his willowed finger. I ran. They pursued. Every time I thought I'd lost them and tried to relax enough so that I could float away into the air, the flunkies would round a corner. I couldn't do it. I could never relax enough so that I could vanish. And it's sometimes one of the things that I love about dreams is sometimes you have this flying dream, at least for me, is like if I can relax enough that I'll fly in the air. And in that particular dream, every time I would relax, then these flunkies would come around the corner. Okay, so one more dream poem. This is a little bit more into the kind of the mystical, unexplainable nature of dreams, and particularly the idea of, I mean, so many times I have a feeling that I've had this really important dream that I want to remember, but I forget it. And I don't know why I forget it. And it's frustrating. It's called The Gatherer. It stands in the courtyard of an adobe longhouse next to the well. The white orb sits atop a 3-foot-high stone pedestal that tapers out near the ground like an evening gown. The gatherer is used on Sundays around 4 o'clock when the afternoon begins to thin. People in sandals are drawn to the gatherer and convene around it, murmuring expectantly as if before a fireworks display or a seance. Everyone knows what the gatherer will do. No one knows what the gatherer does. The white orb hurtles through the arid landscape of red clay, high plateaus, and dust. It travels like a comet, dodging in and out of the stone traffic of the mesa. The gatherer emits a high-pitched whining noise like distant but weak motorbikes. There is a slightly acrid burning smell. Some people consider this sound and smell a form of prayer, but this is not the truth. It is only the gatherer doing its work. All those present when the gatherer departs have dreams that night of flying through the landscape as if on the back of the white orb. In the morning, on a topographical map that stretches an entire wall of the longhouse, they cover with white paint the land they traversed the previous night in their dreams, and together they forget. Okay, let's see. I think I will read, maybe I will read maybe 2 more. I think I'm going to do one of those things that I have never done for a reading, is just flip the book open to see what I open on, and I'm just going to read it. This is called Catapult, and it's a short piece that I wrote in one of the first, I used to teach English at Southern Maine Community College, which is one of the most beautiful campuses I think I have ever seen. And it's right on the Casco Bay in South Portland. And one of my classrooms was just a really dingy classroom. And it had one little thin window that looked out on this beautiful, beautiful picture of Casco Bay. And this is a sort of a piece about that. And the other thing that kind of makes its way into there, kind of curious thing about SMCC at that period of time, that there was a guy who taught science with this huge catapult, wooden catapult, that he would launch watermelons into the air. Catapult. The last student walks into the room. We sit in a circle. The harbor is waiting. A catapult sits in the center of the classroom, spring-loaded in plywood and leather, fully functioning just as the facility staff promised when they found it in the basement of facilities. We discuss the construction and engineering of the catapult, its long, sordid history, some of its mechanical intricacies. One student asks if she can put her weed in it. Others laugh. We start with the student closest to the door. When he is hurled out through the window and vanishes somewhere into the outlying harbor, the mood of the room becomes like the line to ride the Turbinator at the state fair. Will this count for our final grade? Someone asks. If you can find your way back, I say, and strap the next round of human fodder into the machine. I pull the leather straps tight. Someone's elbow cracks. Students fly through the mid-afternoon sky in rapid succession like singular raindrops, the weight of their lives amassing into speeding convexities. Someone should keep track of where they land. Okay, so I think I'm going to end with this last piece. It's called Two Foxes. It's quite a short piece, and it's probably my favorite piece in the book because it's surprising to me, and it's still surprising to me as I read it. It's another dream piece. It's about hair and love. There are a couple pieces in this book about hair and love. But I think it's my favorite because of it's kind of a feeling that I forget that I wrote it, and I read it and I think, that's surprising, and I like that it takes me by surprise. So it's called Two Foxes. Your hair contains an entire dream full of sails and masts. When I gnaw on your rebellious sea hair, it is as if I'm eating memories, happiness espoused to water. At the start of your tawny tentacles, follicles give way to the soft matter of your brain. Your hair is the arm of your brain. I saw two foxes on my way through your hair yesterday. Something was in the air. The animals were stir crazy. Hundreds of geese were circling the pond. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thanks so much, Jefferson. Any questions or comments, reactions, anything in the chat? That last one, the two foxes, is so fantastic. I love this idea that it just came from elsewhere. It's so great.
Yeah, thanks. It's fun to have a piece kind of surprise you like that. Yeah.
I have a question or a comment, maybe.
Yes.
Well, I don't know that many of your pieces, but that last piece in particular, it's so weird, but it's also so tender and beautiful. And I don't know how that balance comes out, because you could sort of feel preoccupied by the weirdness, but somehow I don't, at least. And what really comes across is the very tender feeling of that piece. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that balance or juxtaposition of those two qualities in lots of your pieces, and that piece in particular.
Well, that's a good question. Yes, I think for one thing, it's certainly is a common comment that my pieces have this kind of weird quality to them, and which is I am not I'm not really a very weird person in my normal life, but I think that the weirdness can come out in some of the pieces. And I think that particularly, I mean, this is the kind of the way that it works. Like if I can access that sort of strangeness, it opens up a little place of like what else beyond the weirdness can come out of it. Like there's a way that once I can reach into that, then I can kind of find other like tenderness or humor or kind of a way to get into to find some common ground. Like there is a very satisfying feeling to me to get into, I mean, this is certainly from writing, like get into a weird place and not know where I'm going or not what's going on, but then somehow to feel like, oh, I know what is in here. And even though I don't know the place so well.
Sarah in the chat points out the idea of weirdness as a portal, which is really good.
Yes, weirdness is a portal. It's my favorite portal.
Awesome. Well, Jefferson, it's always good to ask, what are you working on next or right now? What are you excited and enthusiastic about?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah. Let's see. What am I excited about? I'm just kind of working on, I'm just writing poems now. These are all short prose pieces, and I've been writing, just kind of found my way back into writing poems. And I've been excited about writing different poems, some poems about Ohio, where I grew up. I was working this morning on a poem about Lake Michigan. I spent some time in northern Michigan, so I was working on a poem like that. And then I'm kind of still working on thinking about archives and the work that can kind of come out of archives. So yeah, those are two kind of things that keep occupying my attention.
Yeah. Interesting. It's interesting. You're talking about sort of archiving your childhood through poetry at the same time that you're.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I guess as an archivist, I know that it's kind of important to keep things. It's always important to keep things, and maybe not necessarily so important for me to keep things of my own, but I know the value. I mean, lots of the value of keeping things is not really so much for yourself. It's for other people who might encounter them and find new surprising things.
Right. Awesome. This has been a quiet night, but a lovely one.
Yeah, this has been so fun.
Yeah. Any other final questions or comments from anyone else in the chat?
Well, thank you, Em, so much for hosting us, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks. We were thrilled to have you. Absolutely. This has been lovely. Thanks so much, Jefferson. And thanks to everyone for joining. This is really wonderful. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.